tracking the tumbling temperatures. Audrey.
Hi there, Bianca. Well, we really had a nice weekend with some mild weather, and today isn't that bad, actually. But there's a cold Arctic air mass that's plunging down from Canada. It's reaching as far south as the Gulf Coast states. Now, today, it's expected to spread its way eastward here, so we're going to have falling temperatures as we go into tonight. You'll feel the difference starting this evening and definitely tomorrow morning. So right now, we're still in this nice mild wedge with temperatures in the 50s in New York City, as well as towards Newark. Down the shore in Belmar, we're at 49. It's 57 in Islip. But the colder air is just starting to edge its way here across the Poconos and the Catskills. We're seeing numbers drop now in Monticello, where earlier we were about 48 degrees. Now we're down to 40 degrees. A look at the futurecast is showing the temperatures taking a drop all night long. And by tomorrow morning, we're going to start out at the freezing mark in the city, even colder still off to the north and west. Now, that has prompted the National Weather Service to issue a freeze warning for New York City, Long Island, Northeast New Jersey, as well as coastal Connecticut. We'll talk more about the big chill coming our way coming up in just a few minutes. Bianca?
All right, Audrey, thanks so much. Well, developing at this hour, the Senate appears to be inching closer to a resolution to end the government shutdown. Let's get right up to Fox 5's Antoine Lewis tracking today's developments from the newsroom. What's the very latest, Antoine?
Bianca, this agreement to reopen the government and restore funding to key federal services comes as news that President Trump is now appealing to the Supreme Court to keep funding for SNAP benefits frozen, which impacts about 42 million Americans who are facing food insecurity. However, in a 60-40 vote, 8 Democrats broke ranks and supported the GOP measure. Now, the tentative deal would fund the government through January, as well as several key federal agencies. The deal did not include an extension of subsidies of the Affordable Care Act, which had been at the heart of the standoff. But Republican Party leaders feel optimistic that the end of the now more than 40-day shutdown is close, especially as several Democrats offered their support.
And it looks like we're getting close to the shutdown ending. You'll know very soon.
After 40 long days, I'm hopeful that we can finally bring the shutdown to an end.
Again, 8 Senate Democrats broke party ranks to agree to the Republican deal, which, while not extending health care subsidies as the Democrats wanted, Democrats did get a vote on the matter next month, as well as the rehiring of scores of federal workers. It's still unclear how quickly federal agencies impacted by the shutdown will be able to fully restore services. Still, some Democrats held firm by voting no, which is now leading to some in-party fighting.
I need a moratorium on the punishing of the federal workforce. That's what I need.
This health care crisis is so severe, so urgent, so devastating for families back home that I cannot in good faith support this CR that fails to address the health care crisis.
So here's what happens next. The Senate must take a final vote before the deal moves on to the House for consideration. And again, this comes as news that the White House is trying to block the release of funding for SNAP benefits, as it's been ordered to do by several lower courts. We will continue following it for all of the developments coming out of D.C., but this is the very latest we have from the newsroom now, Bianca, and we'll send things back upstairs to you.
All right, Antoine, thanks so much. To some more developing news now. You're looking live at Newark International Airport. That is where the government shutdown may be coming to an end. Air travel is still heavily impacted, though, and that ripple effect could last for days. More than 200 flights were canceled at Newark on Sunday, and cancellations are expected to increase by this Friday at airports around the country due to the air traffic controller shortage. Meanwhile, we're hearing from the air traffic controllers about the situation that has them working without pay. And to make matters worse, we are heading into the busy holiday travel season. National Air Traffic Controllers Association President Nick Daniels today talked about the chaos the shutdown has caused to air travel, and specifically to the lives of the air traffic controllers.
Today, it benchmarks the first time in history that air traffic controllers and other aviation safety professionals we represent have now received 2 $0 paychecks, 41 days without pay. Controllers continue to show up and step up, despite working full-time during the shutdown and, in many cases, mandatory overtime. Controllers continue to show up and step up for the American flying public and for each other.
Now, beyond the shutdown, Daniels also advocated for the hiring of more ATC employees, saying the system is operating with a shortage of more than 3,000 workers. And Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani moving ahead with preparations to take over City Hall. He made an announcement just a short time ago on the Upper East Side. Fox 5's political reporter Morgan McKay joins us now with all the details on this. Morgan.
Hey Bianca, Zohran Mamdani, like every mayor, has to be ready on day one when he's sworn in on January 1st. So today, Zohran Mamdani announcing his first administration appointments. For his first deputy mayor, Mamdani is appointing Dean Fuleihan. Fuleihan was also the first deputy mayor under former Mayor Bill de Blasio, and he was a top legislative staffer in the New York State Assembly for years. Likely someone Mamdani is hoping can help him with his Albany agenda. And then Mamdani also appointed El Bisgard Church as his chief of staff. Bisgard Church is one of Mamdani's closest advisors and is widely credited for helping steer his campaign to victory. Mamdani wouldn't say whether he plans to completely overhaul every city agency by appointing all new commissioners, which he's allowed to do, but says he's looking at the work people do, not who appointed them. He also said that he continues to offer Jessica Tisch to stay on as NYPD commissioner, but hasn't said yet if he's met with her since.
These are the first appointments of my incoming mayoral administration, and they will be critical in helping to inform the approach of our administration as a whole, as well as the question of appointments further. And in that will come the answer to the ways in which we will divide up the responsibilities. I think the most important thing, however, is that these will be two key partners in delivering on the work that we've been looking to do for far too long. And I continue to retain my interest in keeping Commissioner Jessica Tisch, and I'll be sure to inform you when I have any updates.
Yeah. Now, Governor Kathy Hochul seemed to hint that Jessica Tisch plans to stay in this position as NYPD commissioner while she was in Puerto Rico. Hochul said that she wouldn't keep harping on the issue and praising the fact that Mamdani is asking her to stay on if she didn't think that Tisch wanted the job. Reporting live, I'm Morgan Mackay. Bianca, back to you.
All right, Morgan, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Meanwhile, we are coming up a busy day at the Supreme Court. That's what we're going to be talking about. A decade after gay marriage was legalized in the U.S., the court weighs in on a challenge to that historic ruling, plus agrees to also hear a case that could have a big impact on future elections. And President Trump issuing dozens of pardons in the fight over the 2020 elections, while he says it was necessary to take action. Some developing news from Washington. The Supreme Court rejected a call to overturn its decision legalizing same-sex marriage nationwide. The judges turned away an appeal from Kim Davis, the former Kentucky court clerk who refused to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples after the high court's 2015 ruling in Obergefell versus Hodges. Now, Davis had been trying to get the court to overturn a lower court order for her to pay $360,000 in damages and attorney's fees to a couple denied a marriage license. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court has agreed to take up a case whether states can continue to count late arriving mail-in ballots. The case has been a target of President Trump's. The justices took up an appeal from Mississippi after a panel of 3 judges ruled last year the state law allowing ballots that arrived shortly after Election Day to be counted violated federal law. And President Trump grants pardons for his 77 co-defendants in the alleged pilot to overturn the 2020 presidential election. The Trump administration announces the pardons yesterday. That includes some of the president's closest allies, such as former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani and his former chief of staff, Mark Meadows. Those pardoned were alleged to have organized a scheme to alternate slates of electors in battleground states that former President Joe Biden had won back in 2020. The president did not pardon himself, but in the pardoning document, President Trump said this, quote, ends a grave national injustice perpetrated upon the American people. And speaking of President Trump, he said most Americans could receive a check for $2,000 if his tariffs remain in effect. Now, the tariffs include those enacted on Canada, China, and Mexico in February, and of most of the world on April. The tariffs were ordered by the president without legislative approval under the 1970 Emergency Power Law. The president says the proposed payment would only be sent to non-high income earners. The Supreme Court still has to decide if the tariffs are constitutional. And the fight over SNAP food assistance continues with millions of New Yorkers caught in the middle. Coming up, the very latest on the funding battle and what state officials are doing to help out. And struggling with fertility issues when you're trying to have a baby can be devastating emotionally and financially. Details on some new legislation that could help make in vitro fertilization more affordable. The FDNY remembering a firefighter while battling a blaze at Brooklyn this weekend. Black and purple bunting was hung above the garage doors at the firehouse. Patrick Brady worked for since 2022. The 11-year veteran was on the roof of a large building fire in Brownsville when officials say he suffered a medical emergency and went into sudden cardiac arrest. He was treated on the scene and then rushed to the hospital where he died. Brady was 42 years old. Meanwhile, Congressman Mike Lawler and Montefiore Nyack Hospital announced legislation to help families afford IVF. The IVF Access and Affordability Act will provide a federal tax credit to help families afford life-giving fertility treatments like in vitro fertilization. The plan would provide up to $20,000 in tax credits to individuals and $40,000 to couples to offset the cost of IVF. IVF can cost tens of thousands of dollars, and many insurance plans do not cover it.
Fertility care gives families hope, and it helps make the dream of parenthood possible. But for millions of Americans, the dream of becoming a parent is out of reach because of the cost and limited access to fertility care.
Well, Lawler spoke about the fertility issues he and his wife had while trying to build a family of their own. And the Trump administration returned to the Supreme Court today, pushing to keep the SNAP federal food aid program frozen until the government shutdown is resolved. Fox 5's Stephanie Bertini is here with the very latest on the funding fight and how New Yorkers are now coping with this. Stephanie.
Bianca, a lot of confusion. Within the last little while, we learned the Trump administration is working to keep SNAP payments frozen. As the government shutdown continues, there's chaos among state leaders and nearly 42 million people who rely on SNAP. Underneath a synagogue on the Upper East Side, volunteers chopping produce and packing cooking ingredients.
Giving back is a big Jewish value and important Jewish value, and something that means a lot to us and matters a lot to us. And so if we can be here to lend our hand, or lots of hands in our case, and help.
This man and his family among those stepping up to fill what's a growing need. The Must Be a Soup Kitchen Network is a kosher food pantry and kitchen serving families of every faith and demographic, with locations in Brooklyn and Queens.
We have people pouncing on appointments. We increased appointments 25% so people can come more. And we almost have days where in every slot there's one new person.
So new faces.
Definitely new faces, people who never needed help because they had SNAP.
Commonly referred to as SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program is relied on by nearly 42 million people, or about 1 in 8 Americans, to help with groceries. It was frozen in November, affected by the government shutdown.
The number of people who are coming to food pantries, it's just exploded.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture oversees SNAP and froze the payments due to a federal funding freeze. Later, 2 judges ruled the feds must continue to fund SNAP at least partially. The Trump administration appealed it, and today the Trump administration returned to the Supreme Court in a push to keep full payments in the SNAP federal food aid program frozen during the government shutdown. Over the weekend, the Deputy Undersecretary of Agriculture said, to the extent states sent full SNAP payment files for November 2025, this was unauthorized. Accordingly, states must immediately undo any steps taken to issue full SNAP benefits for November 2025. The situation leaves states in limbo. With the demand on food pantries growing, we're seeing people step up to help, and organizations like Must Be doing more.
The work that they're doing has always been dear to our community, and we've always brought them in. But in a time like this real crisis, we think it's even more important that we can participate however we can.
Late last week, Governor Hochul said New Yorkers should in fact expect full SNAP payments this month. Now we're waiting to find out if New York is changing its stance. Back to you, Bianca.
All right, then. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Meanwhile, changes coming to the New York City ferry routes. Officials say the changes shorten commute times, provide more stops, and improve the overall efficiency. Some of the updates include splitting the East River into 2 routes at most times of the day and combining the Soundview and Rockaway routes as well, and then connecting the St. George route to Brooklyn. And for the first time, there will be a service connecting Brooklyn to Manhattan's West Side. The updated routes go into effect on December 8th. Let's turn now to weather to see, or lack thereof, what's in store for us this afternoon. Yes, we're taking a live look outside. Can't see much, but Dr. Puente is going to fill us in on why that is.
Well, that's because we have some rain showers coming in across the city right now, Bianca. We're in this mild pocket of air here just along the coast, so temperatures are pretty decent, mostly in the 50s right along our shore points here. Islip's at 57 degrees. It's 49 in Belmar, 54 right now in the city, but we can see some colder air just edging its way north and west of us here, like in Monticello, where earlier it was 48 degrees. We've now dropped to 39. That's the leading edge of an Arctic air mass that's headed in our direction, and the temperatures are starting to come down now. We're already running about 5 to almost 15 degrees cooler than we were at this time yesterday, and we're going down from here, folks. It's going to be a cold night tonight and a very cold start to your day on Tuesday. The winds are now starting to pick up speed, too. They've been light all morning long, but now we're seeing a little bit of a breeze developing, and these winds will increase in speed, too. We're looking at blustery days for the next few. We could have wind gusts up to 40 miles per hour through midweek. Here's a look at the shower activity. Let's deal with that first. Right now, we do have rain rotating in across the region. It's been a wet morning across Long Island and Connecticut. That rainfall is now shifting over into New England, but now we still have more rain developing along a front that's now pushing through the area. So one last batch has to get through here before we start to see drier weather working in from the west. But not only will it be drier, it will also be much colder. And as a result, we have lake effect snow showers being found in and around western New York, moving into western portions of Pennsylvania. In fact, further west from there out towards Chicago, they saw several inches of snowfall since last night because of those lake effect snow showers. Now we have this area of low pressure with its extended front that'll be pushing out of the region as we go towards the afternoon. The colder air will be rushing in. You can see the snow extends all the way down towards northern portions of Alabama and into Tennessee and Kentucky. We're going to get a taste of this in our area. Not quite snowfall, but definitely cold enough for snow across the region by tomorrow morning. So as you plan for the rest of your day, plan for falling temperatures. We're going to be going through the 50s. We'll be in the 40s by dinner time. And tomorrow morning, we're going to wake up in the 30s. A lot of places will be below the freezing mark north and west of the city. I'll have the details coming up. Bianca?
All right, Audrey, sounds good. Thanks so much. Well, next at noon, coffee drinkers, your morning cup could be good for your heart health. What a new study says about the link between coffee and irregular heartbeats. Our coffee lover is going to want to hear this. It looks like drinking caffeinated coffee may help protect against irregular heartbeats. A study recruited 200 adults with an average age of 70 years old in the U.S., Canada, and Australia who were regular coffee drinkers at some point in their last 5 years. Now, the subjects were split into two groups, one which cut out coffee and the other which had at least 1 cup every day. Researchers found that those in the coffee drinking group were 17% less likely to have a reoccurrence of AFib, which causes irregular heartbeats. Over 10 million Americans live with that disorder. And an experimental pill taken daily may lower cholesterol in patients when taken with their statins. The trial data shows bad cholesterol was reduced 60% after 24 weeks of daily treatment with enlicitide. There were some side effects, though, like gastrointestinal disorders and certain infections, but this was also found in those given a placebo. The results were presented at the American Heart Association's scientific sessions. And YouTube TV subscribers will be getting some money back due to its ongoing dispute with ESPN. YouTube TV told subscribers in an email that it'll be offering them a $20 credit as it continues negotiations with the network. This comes as the two sides have been at odds over how much YouTube TV is willing to pay ESPN per subscriber. The email did not indicate how close they are to a deal, but The Athletic reported last week that the two sides were far apart on an agreement. All right, next at noon, the wounds military veterans come home with are not always visible. Now, one group is offering a different kind of treatment to help vets heal after service. And we're going to give you a taste of Whiskey Fest, which is back this Friday in Times Square. Stay tuned for this when we're trying it live on air.
New York City is delivering for you every day, everywhere. Major crime is down citywide. A record number of new homes have been created. And a brand new universal after-school program is available for our kids. With safer streets and thriving small businesses, NYC is delivering for families, making this the best place to raise yours. Find out more at deliveringforyou.nyc.
Welcome back. It's 12:30 right now. We got more at noon coming up straight ahead. Talking about this as we're getting ready to mark Veterans Day tomorrow. We're taking a look at how one organization is helping veterans heal from pain and trauma. Plus this, Whiskey Fest is returning to the city this week, and we've got a preview. We're going to be trying some whiskeys on the air soon, just to give you a heads up on what you want to try, maybe not. But first, let's get another live look outside on this Monday. It's certainly part of the Monday gloomies. However, it's part of our work week. Audrey Puente is talking more about it. Some of the rain and showers in the air. This is fall. That's what we got to deal with.
Yeah, but it's going to feel more like winter as we go into tonight and tomorrow, Bianca. That's for sure. And that has prompted the National Weather Service to issue a freeze warning for New York City, Northeast New Jersey, coastal Connecticut, and Long Island. We're coming to the end of the growing season here, and that is why they have the freeze warning in effect for tonight. So if you have any tender vegetation or plants outdoors, bring it inside, because tonight we are expecting some very cold air. We have an Arctic air mass that's working out of Canada here. It's working all the way down towards the Gulf Coast, where they're going to be seeing temperatures below normal for this time of year, and that is slowly spreading eastward here, and we're going to have a taste of it right here in the tri-state area. Here's a look at the current temperatures right now. It's very cold just to our west. Chicago's at 30 degrees. We were in the 20s earlier this morning, as far south as Kansas City and Minneapolis. Memphis now at 35 degrees right now. That's pretty cold. New Orleans is also feeling the chill, and that cold weather will work its way to the Florida Panhandle as well. Now it's moving a little bit eastward, so we're starting to see the edge of it creep into the tri-state area. Here we are in Monticello with a temperature of 39 degrees, where earlier we were about 10 degrees milder. 45 now in Sussex. We're still holding on to the 50s here along the coast, but these numbers will be falling as we go through the afternoon. It's all going to be helped by a northwest wind flow, which is coming in on the backside of a front that's currently moving through the tri-state area. So that's going to help usher in the colder weather out from our west. And again, we're going to have cold temperatures not only for tonight, but also through the daytime hours tomorrow. Now we're tracking some showers. We're still waiting for these to actually push out to the east. We had a band that came through Long Island and Connecticut all morning long. That has now moved into New England, but now we have another batch running just along the cold front, and that's igniting a few showers now in and around the city, parts of New Jersey, as well as the Hudson Valley. So once this moves off the coast, that's when the cold air really rushes in behind it, and it will turn dramatically colder starting tonight across the region here. Now we can see the cold air being kind of reflected here with lake effect snow showers coming in across western New York, over from Buffalo, over towards Syracuse. Those will be streaming downstate too, and we could see a couple of flakes flying across parts of the Hudson Valley as we go into tomorrow. We have a very strong west to northwest wind flow. We're seeing lake effect snow showers all around the Great Lakes here, and the areas shaded in red, they have the greatest chance. And of course, we can see some flakes flying as far south as Sullivan and Ulster County as we go into tomorrow. But right now, the snow appears to be falling from the Great Lakes all the way down towards the Tennessee Valley, even into northern Alabama right now. So that's really cold air that's working its way into the eastern half of the nation here. So the rain showers will pinwheel their way out towards New England as we move through the afternoon. We'll actually see some peaks of sun before it sets later on today. Tonight we go mostly clear, and then we'll be watching these lake effect snow bands kind of develop by tomorrow morning. Again, some of these could stream as far south as the Hudson Valley. Check this out. Even into northwest New Jersey, we could see a couple of flakes flying up in the higher elevations, like near High Point, New Jersey. And we could get a shower here in the city too by the afternoon, but I think it'll be in the form of rain and not snow, because temperatures will be well above the freezing mark by that point. Then everything kind of fizzles out as we go into the evening, and on Wednesday we'll be left with some cloud cover with some sun peeking through from time to time. And once again, the lake effect snow machine will start again, so we could see a couple of flakes flying up to the north here, and maybe a sprinkle too across parts of the Hudson Valley. So today, 56, that's all we got to today. We're actually going to be falling as we go through the afternoon with our temperatures. And then tonight, check it out, 32 in the city. It hasn't been this cold since early April. We'll be in the 20s in some of the suburbs, so a very cold start to your Tuesday. Factor in the winds, and that 43 is going to feel more like 33 tomorrow. It's still blustery on Wednesday, and temperatures stay below normal right through the end of the week. Bianca, you're going to need a few extra layers.
I was going
tomorrow.
to say, I'm already getting prepped for it. Audrey, thanks so much. Meanwhile, for years, countless veterans have come home with invisible wounds, pain that medicine and therapy cannot reach. But now a group called Heroic Hearts is offering a different kind of hope, using psychedelics to help heal veterans and help them find peace after service. Fox 5's Dan Bowens has their story.
The brain, electric, endless, and what happens when it opens up? That hallucinogenic, mind-altering experience, more than wild colors or walls melting, but perception rearranging itself. And sometimes where trauma fragments the mind, the experience can reconnect it.
I knew I was struggling. I knew I was having a hard time.
For former Army Ranger Jesse Gould, that reconnection began far from home.
I went to the VA. I was diagnosed with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and the only track that was offered to me would be to go on medication with talk therapy.
Traditional medications?
But I also didn't want to acquiesce at the age of 28 to being on medication the rest of my life.
Instead, he took what he calls a leap of faith.
And bought a one-way ticket to Peru and just dove into it. The first experience I had with these sort of treatments is something called ayahuasca. And so it's the combination of 2 Amazonian plants. Just completely kicked my ass and was probably one of the hardest experiences I've ever had.
That journey became the start of the Heroic Hearts Project, helping other veterans find healing where traditional care falls short.
Once people go through these treatments and are healed, the first thing they want to do is, how do I help somebody else? How do I advocate for somebody else? And so I'm no different than that.
Since 2017, the program has worked with more than 1,500 veterans through week-long guided retreats, often overseas. One of the participants, and now a Heroic Hearts coach, Bill Anthes, a former Green Beret.
I got home and I felt completely like a stranger. Honestly, I didn't unpack my bag for about a year. I did go to the VA, and unfortunately for me and my individual experience, it was not a positive one.
That's when he started exploring alternative options like psychedelic treatment. He understands why people would be skeptical.
I would encourage the skeptics to maybe invite a little bit of curiosity into worldview, and I was skeptical as well. Similar, like I never did drugs growing up. I thought, hallucinogenics or psychedelics were bad.
So what we're looking at here is a brain reacting after having taken psilocybin?
Right.
What are we seeing here?
Under the influence of psilocybin.
Dr. Michael Bogenschutz is director of the NYU Langone Center for Psychedelic Medicine.
Under the influence of psilocybin, there's really a massive increase in overall functional connectivity. There are literally connections being made that would not be made in a normal state of consciousness.
In one study, 2 controlled doses of psilocybin cut alcohol use in half. He says the same brain rewiring effect could help veterans reframe traumatic memories.
It tends to make people, in a clinical context, allow people to experience their emotions, including their negative emotions and their traumatic memories, without becoming as easily overwhelmed.
For Jesse Gould, it always comes back to the mission.
And so I think beyond the military, it's everybody's obligation to help out in the ways you can. Like if you discovered something on your own that can drastically heal people, who are you to not try to share that?
That was Dan Bowens reporting. It is important to note that this is not recreational use, but guided therapies. And if you do want to learn more, you can go to heroicheartsproject.org. And Fox 5 proudly salutes our nation's veterans and the organizations that serve them every day. We believe that our veterans deserve to live with dignity and independence, not on the streets. That's why we are making camo our cause in support of the Honor U.S. Vets campaign. You can join us by buying limited edition Fox U.S. Vets swag that you see right there, making a donation, and even wearing camo on this Veterans Day. Post your camo on your socials with hashtag #HonorUSVets. And to donate, shop, and learn more on how you can help U.S. vets prevent and end homelessness, scan the QR code right there on your screen, or you can visit go.fox/USVets. All right, next at noon, Pete Davidson makes a surprise return to Saturday Night Live. What he had to say about the Staten Island Ferry and his upcoming fatherhood. And then later, the annual Veterans Day Parade. That is tomorrow. All the details on the festivities.
Stop and Shop.
The trailer for the upcoming Michael Jackson biopic, Michael, has become the most watched trailer for a music biopic ever. It racked up to over 116 million views in the first 24 hours of its release last Thursday. And not only did that make it the most viewed trailer before any music biopic in history, but it also made its Lionsgate's largest trailer debut ever. The late music superstar is played by his nephew, Jafar Jackson, who stars alongside Miles Teller, Coleman Domingo, and Neil Long. Michael is in theaters April 24th. And Pete Davidson returned to Saturday Night Live this past weekend, where he and Weekend Update host Colin Jost joked about their failing investment in a Staten Island ferry. Take a look.
In case you're wondering why I had to do a show in Saudi Arabia, we're losing millions on this ferry. I assume that's what the article says. I can't spend $5 on a paywall when I got a kid on the way.
The comedian jokingly referenced his controversial appearance at the Riyadh Community Festival in Saudi Arabia from September when discussing that investment. Davidson and Jost originally purchased the decommissioned Staten Island ferry for over $280,000 back in 2022, hoping to turn it into an entertainment venue. But according to the New York Times, their plans haven't come any closer to happening since then. However, Davidson said later in his SNL appearance that he isn't giving up on the project. And Glenn Powell is back in action in a new take on Stephen King's The Running Man. Powell plays Ben Richards, a father who risks everything by entering a deadly game show for his one last chance to save his sick daughter. The original film first hit the big screen in the 1987 cult classic starring Arnold Schwarzenegger.
We got to show Arnold Schwarzenegger the movie. Arnold loved the movie. And one of the things that he even highlighted was the fact that, they really didn't get to put Stephen King's book on screen, where we get to really kind of honor what Stephen King wrote initially, which is kind of taking this journey out into the real world where the entire world is hunting one guy.
The Running Man opens in theaters on Friday. And Predator: Badlands did better than expected at the box office, taking the top spot in theaters this weekend. The sci-fi sequel earned $40 million domestically during its debut and another $40 million worldwide. It is the biggest global opening for the franchise, passing 2018's Predator. All right, Whiskey Fest is back in the city. Next at noon, we're going to give you a taste and, of course, a preview of Friday's event. And then later, a veteran gets a big helping hand from the Jets. We've got some details on the major surprise the team announced at yesterday's game. Fox. All right, if you like whiskey, listen up. This Friday, Whiskey Advocates' annual event, Whiskey Fest, is back. But this year comes with a twist. So for the first time, the festival is expanding beyond whiskey to include tequila and then other spirits from around the world. This is awesome, giving guests a chance to sample rare bottles and discover some new favorites. I love when they do this here in the city. Joining us now to tell us more about what we can expect at this year's Whiskey Fest, David Savona, editor-at-large at Whiskey Advocate. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Piara. Great to be here.
I love when you get people to all come around and try things that they haven't tried before, whether you like whiskey or tequila or anything. You're going to find a new favorite, I'm sure.
Guaranteed. It's like Halloween for adults.
Yes.
Instead of getting candy, you walk around and you get incredible spirits, including these 4 that we have. There's going to be about 200 in total.
200. Okay, so the first time I got to experience something like this at the same location, Marriott Marquis, was the Wine Spectator event.
Terrific.
And it was like walking into Disneyland for adults. You meet the producers, everyone's so friendly, you're trying different drinks. It was the best thing ever. It's well worth the ticket price for this kind of thing. But
I couldn't agree more.
On something else. So what did you bring for us today here, just to give us a little sample?
We have 4 very special tastes here. So we have 3 whiskeys, but we're going to start with the tequila because we have tequila as part of Whiskey Fest now.
Yeah.
So if I can give you this. You know, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, so this is okay for us to drink. This is a new product. This is El Tesoro Añejo Mundial Collection Yamazaki cask finish. So it's a tequila, that's well aged.
Yeah.
It's finished in a cask that once held Japanese whiskey.
I was going to say, that's a very interesting mix there, but I'm sure it probably tastes amazing.
Has a great nose.
Oh, that's really nice.
Nice, right? Look, maybe some roasted pineapple notes, you know, very, very balanced, very elegant, a little toasty, sweet
what's
but not
funny?
too sweet.
This is why people got to come to events like this, because you know, a lot of times you have a lot of celebrities pushing their own brands, and it becomes a big thing because there's a lot of marketing behind it. But smaller producers produce just as amazing stuff.
Oh, El Tesoro is a really, really quality producer.
Yeah.
They do it artisanally and the old-fashioned way.
I love that. Okay, so what we got next here?
Okay,
I want to run through the whole line of stuff.
Now we're moving into whiskey. This is a Scotch. We're going to go into a Scotch that might be perfect for you if you don't think you love Scotch. This is Aberfeldy. It's 15 years old from the Scottish Highlands.
$12.49. Okay, I'm here for it.
Okay, so
Okay, that's strong. That's a little strong.
No, there's maybe just a little bit, some like apricot flavor in there. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe
I'm just not used to tasting Scotch too much, but trust me, I'm going to get on board on Friday. Okay, well, then we got two other ones
here. Okay, now we're moving to bourbon. This one's got a here we go. So this is Baby Jane, and this actually has a New York connection. The Widow Jane Distillery is in Brooklyn.
Oh, very cool.
So part of this liquid is from New York and parts from Kentucky.
Smells. They should put this as a candle.
There we go.
I'm telling you, I'm not going to be able to do the 6 p.m. later tonight. Oh, my gosh. Okay, that is amazing.
Great, right?
I really like that.
It's made with heirloom corn, which is very cool. Okay, now we're going to go back to Scotch, but this is a different type of Scotch, a blended Scotch. Top of the line is Johnny Walker Blue.
Ah, I know this brand.
Mm-hmm.
It's distinct smell as well.
Mm-hmm.
You guys, I'm taking the rest of the day off. Taking the rest of the day off. How many am I supposed to read after this? I just put 4 shots of, I don't even know.
Just little tastes, little samples. You know, this has a great, classic Scotch profile, maybe a little
beautiful.
bit of heat. You like it?
Okay, number 1 favorite, though.
Is that your number 1 favorite?
Yeah,
You're
that's
a bourbon
really
person.
good.
Okay.
That's really amazing. Okay, this is just 4. You have over how many again?
200.
That's pretty incredible. And so the event, Friday.
This Friday at the Marriott Marquis Whiskey Fest. You can still get tickets at whiskeyfest.com.
Are you going to be selling out of tickets? Because I feel like, it's only for a day, so I'm sure you're going to
We will make
sell
room
out.
for you, so why don't you come?
Okay, just making sure, because I'm going to be back. I'm going to actually finish the rest of my drinks. Certainly appreciate you being here. Excited for you guys' event on Friday. Hopefully I can come by and say hi. And hopefully you guys can come by and say hi and find a new favorite. All right, we got more noon straight ahead. Cheers to that.
Cheers, Bianca.
Welcome back. The Jets and the Tunnel to Towers Foundation recognize Corporal Adrian Simone of the United States Marine Corps as a true American hero. The organizations presented the New Jersey native with a smart home during yesterday's game. In August of 2011, Simone lost both of his legs after stepping on an improvised explosive device while on patrol in Afghanistan. But he now teaches history at a high school in Newark and is in the process of completing his master's degree in education at Montclair State. Today is the Marine Corps' 250th birthday. Congrats to him. And as we prepare to honor service members on Veterans Day, actor Gary Sinise is doing his part to help vets. Sinise, who played a Vietnam vet in Forrest Gump and a soldier in A Midnight Clear, is helping a nonprofit group transform an abandoned Nashville church into a 24-hour veteran arts center community hub. This is going to provide creative arts outlets for vets when post-traumatic stress disorder strikes. That center would be a place to counteract local bar atmospheres that could be harmful for vets.
Sharing stories is essential to healing. If you contain all those things, they can self-combust in ways that can be very damaging, and we don't want that to happen.
Sinise is donating $1 million to purchase the building as well. All right, next at noon, thousands of marchers will hit the streets of Manhattan for tomorrow's Veterans Day parade. All the details on the festivities and a check of the parade forecast. Well, tomorrow is Veterans Day, and this year's parade will commemorate 250 years of military service since the start of the Revolutionary War. More than 280 marching units and 20,000 marchers, along with 25 floats, will be a part of this parade. Thousands of spectators expected to line the road when it steps off at 12:30, and participants march up Fifth Avenue. This is from 25th to 45th Streets. The United War Veterans Council said the event will feature present and past members of every branch of the military, along with vintage vehicles and, of course, marching bands. All right, let's get a check of the final forecast here, Audrey, especially wondering what are things going to look like for tomorrow.
Well, it'll be dry for the parade, so that's good news. It's a great parade. I would definitely recommend going out there, but just be bundled up because it's going to be quite cold for tomorrow. Right now, we have some rain showers moving in across the city. This line will be moving to the east here, allowing for drier weather to come in from the west, but it's colder weather also coming in, so temperatures will be dropping significantly. Check out the lows for the overnight. We're down to the freezing mark in the city. Will be even colder off to the north and west by tomorrow morning. Tomorrow's high of 43 will feel more like 33 because of a blustery wind. It stays windy for Wednesday, and it stays cooler than average for the rest of the week. Bianca?
Audrey, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Well, that is our show, but before we go, here's one last thing to leave you with. Taco Bell offering a new treat inspired by its popular soda. The fast food chain has launched the Mountain Dew Baja Blast Pie. It's a limited edition key lime dessert inspired by the chain's Baja Blast beverage. The pie is about $20 and comes whole. Taco Bell says the pie will only be available while supplies last. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. 25 Words or Less is next. And if you want more news, tune in to the Fox local app streaming right now.
Monday, November 10th. Welcome to Newsroom Live, everybody. Antoine Lewis, very happy to be with you from the newsroom of Fox 5 Studios on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. Let's take a quick live look outside. What you're seeing right now is an indication of what we will be experiencing a little bit later. Our temperatures are going to drop, but Audrey Pointe, our meteorologist, will be with me a little bit later to talk about this and the impact the weather is going to have on you for the rest of your Monday. But first, bringing you up to speed on all things politics. Morgan McKay is joining me now because we have a very latest information on Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani, whose cabinet is starting to take shape.
You know, for Zohran Mamdani and every mayor who comes into office, on day one, they have to be ready to go, hit the ground running. And
Absolutely.
So on January 1st, he has to be ready. That's the day he gets sworn in. He has to be ready. And so today, he is announcing his first picks for his administration. You'll remember last week he announced some members of his transition team. That doesn't mean these are people who necessarily going to stay with him through his administration. But these are people today that he's appointing right there. That is Dean Fulihan. He was actually the former first deputy mayor for
former Mayor Bill de Blasio.
Okay.
He also is a longtime top legislative staffer up in Albany. He's very familiar with some of the assembly speakers up there and just how the Albany process works, not just how the City Hall process, but also the Albany process. And that's going to be so important for Mamdani as he's looking to get some of these key agenda items that he wants this next year completed. And he's going to need somebody who can maybe know the whispers of Albany a little bit better than some. And that is definitely Dean Fullahand. And so Mamdani announcing him today as his first deputy mayor. And then the woman who's standing right there next to Mamdani, that's I'm going to make sure I'm getting her name right here, Elle Bisgard Church. And she's going to be his chief of staff. And this is one of his closest advisors. She worked with him when he was a state assemblyman, and she really helped steer his campaign, both in the primary and in the general election. And she's really credited to having just a lot of say in when it came to how he maneuvered some of these tough items, especially when he was first sort of hitting the ground running. So she's going to be his chief of staff. And some of the questions today kind of centered around, how is this indicative of how he's going to be staffing his administration? You've got some older faces, but at the same time, you've got some newer faces.
Right.
And he said exactly, all these people are going to come together and help him shape his agenda, his priorities, and help them get them done. Things like the free buses, this is all going to need to be done up in Albany. Free universal childcare, that's going to be done in Albany with the help of state lawmakers. And so today he was also asked, what about Jessica Tisch? I think that's one of the big questions right now is, will she stay on as police commissioner? He has said that he wants her to stay on. And so here's what he said today when he was asked, how those conversations are going.
The first appointments of my incoming mayoral administration, and they will be critical in helping to inform the approach of our administration as a whole, as well as the question of appointments further. And in that will come the answer to the ways in which we will divide up the responsibilities. I think the most important thing, however, is that these will be two key partners in delivering on the work that we've been looking to do for far too long. And I continue to retain my interest in keeping Commissioner Jessica Tisch, and I'll be sure to inform you when I have any updates.
Okay.
Now, potentially a sign that Jessica Tisch wants to stay on. Governor Kathy Hochul, when she was in Puerto Rico for the Somos conference this last weekend, she was asked about, this Jessica Tisch maybe not kind of weighing in just yet on where she stands, whether she'll stay or not. And Hochul said that if she didn't think that she was going to stay, that she wouldn't keep harping on the idea. She wouldn't keep saying how excited she is that Jessica Tisch is going to be staying in this position. So it seems like Hochul knows something that maybe hasn't been said so far. Now, Hochul was also in Puerto Rico, and she said that when it comes to that free bus idea, she said that she right now can't see a world where buses will be free, especially, she said, taking money away from the MTA at this point is not something that she could see as a possibility. She said she does imagine that potentially they could expand to have more low-income people ride the bus for free. They already have programs to allow for people who maybe are more low income to qualify for certain programs where they can get either discounted or free fares. And I asked Mamdani today kind of what he thought about that. And it's still early in the game of all of this. I mean, he still hasn't taken office.
Right.
But he said today that, as of right now, this is not something that he can see them doing incrementally. He does want to see free buses, and he wants that as it is.
Right, because that was a campaign promise,
exactly.
To that degree. A couple of questions for you, Morgan. Okay, so we're about a week outside of the election. Haven't heard from Team Cuomo, haven't heard from Sliwa, anything your sources are saying, especially with Cuomo, who has he called Mamdani yet to your knowledge to offer congratulations?
So Cuomo has not called Mamdani to my knowledge. He did run into the New York Post as he was walking around recently, where he sort of talked about how, Mamdani is going to be, people are going to regret potentially electing Mamdani, sort of having this warning a little bit, but no clue yet on what he's going to do next. At this point, they spent around $30 million in this election as a whole. I mean, just for him, he spent the majority of that money. A lot of people threw millions of dollars at him to try to get him to win the primary and the general election, and it didn't work. Now, Mamdani did say today that he did speak with Gavin Newsom, which I thought was kind of interesting. He did get a call from Gavin Newsom.
Governor of California, Gavin Newsom.
Exactly. Sort of putting him on this national stage a bit. I think he's definitely gotten national attention. So a lot of people, a lot of Democrats are looking at him. He also got a call from former President Barack Obama and former President Joe Biden. Really, as again, some Democrats are hoping to take his message nationally, especially when it comes to that affordability. At the same time, I spoke with Congressman Josh Gottheimer. He's a Democrat just this past Friday, and he said that he does not see Mamdani as somebody who is a Democrat. He called him a socialist and said that he doesn't have a place right now in the Democratic Party, and said that if people are looking to get out of socialism, they should come to New Jersey. So.
Right. Gottheimer represents, he's D from New Jersey.
Yep.
So was talking about that. Does this follow the line in all of your years of covering politics, that this is just par for the course? You know, when this one's doing, he's moving forward, the other camp may be dealing with, if not sour grapes, then perhaps PTSD, you know, given what happened?
I think for a long time it was, you know, not just customary, but it was really just seen almost as a given that you would call somebody and say, you know, I'm conceding the race. I think over the last several years, we've seen politics move away from a place of sort of bipartisanship, sort of from, I guess, unity a little bit more. There's definitely, I think, a little bit more strife in politics. So maybe not too surprising that Cuomo decided not to call Mamdani. But we'll have to see just, you know, where he goes from here. I know there's some rumors that he's considering possibly running for congressional seats, like Jerry Nadler's seat even, possibly running for Chuck Schumer's seat, and because he's going to be up for re-election here soon, and possibly even for governor next year. Governor Kathy Hochul's up for re-election next year. It's unclear, though. We'll have to see.
One of the other things before you go, I know you are quite busy. You've been in the reporter pool covering this for a while now. What's the feel amongst the political reporters? Okay, is it like the election is done now, we can breathe a little bit, or now you're having to break down what these propositions mean? You know, like where does it stand for you, Ms. McKay?
Right now, it's a little bit of a lull, but not much of one, because right now it's trying to see exactly where Mamdani is going to go from here, who he's going to be appointing to some of these really key positions, like NYPD Commissioner if Jessica Tisch stays on, the school's chancellor, who he's going to appoint to that position. There's talk that he could be keeping on the current school's chancellor on to that position. We'll have to see. At this point, it's sort of, we're getting a good look at how Mamdani is going to be as a mayor by just who he's appointing and how he's appointing them. They said that they've gotten more than 25,000 resumes in just the first 24 hours of putting up this portal to try to get people to apply to be part of his administration. So obviously there's a lot of interest. It's going to be interesting to see how much of a role Democratic Socialists of America, Mamdani is a Democratic Socialist, to see how much this organization, if any, has a role in his administration. So we're going to have to see, how it all shapes up. I think it's just really exciting right now to see just all the pieces coming together after so many months of just covering a campaign. Now, finally, it's the meat and potatoes of political reporting, where we kind of get more substance as we go along, but still sort of a waiting game as we wait for January 1st for him to get sworn in.
And that is when dinner will be served. All right. Morgan McKay, host of Politics Unusual, airs every Friday right here on 6:30 on Fox 5. All right. We're going to take a quick break, everybody. More news, more headlines, more Newsroom Live when we return. 1:13 on your Monday, November 11th. We are following some breaking news into the newsroom. Giants fans, sit down for this one. We are learning that the Giants have fired head coach Brian Daboll. Now, again, this is all developing right now. It literally crossed our newsroom maybe 15 minutes ago, if that, as we were preparing to meet and to talk with you. But yep, this is the news here. This firing comes after a 24-20 loss to the Chicago Bears on yesterday, and they actually blew a lead in the third quarter. They were up 17-7, I believe it was at some point. Thank you, Eric McPhailin, our editor, off to the side there. But yeah, so this is interesting news. It's also developing right now. The record is 2-8. I believe that's as it stands right in through there. Eric's nodding, upset as it looks like. So, but anyway, so yeah, this one's just into our newsroom now. We anticipate more information coming out from the New York Jets organization, but it appears that Brian Daboll, from what we're hearing, is no longer going to be coach. So we are staying on top of that, and we'll bring you the very latest as we get it. All right, so the government shutdown is now more than 40 days old. It is the longest shutdown in history, but there appears to be some lining in the middle of all of this. So here's what we can tell you. Apparently, an agreement has been reached within the Senate to reopen the government. So here's what's going on. I'll explain it to you. In a 60-40 vote over the weekend, 8 Democrats broke ranks and supported the GOP measure. Now, the tentative deal, that word, tentative deal, would fund the government through January, as well as several key federal agencies. The deal did not include an extension of subsidies of the Affordable Care Act, which was one of the sticking points for Democrats that they wanted, and that had been part of the heart of the standoff. But Republican Party leaders feel optimistic that the end of the now more than, again, 40-day shutdown is close, especially since Democrats offered some of their support. Listen to this.
I need a moratorium on the punishing of the federal workforce. That's what I need.
This healthcare crisis is so severe, so urgent, so devastating for families back home that I cannot in good faith support this CR that fails to address the healthcare crisis.
So whom you just heard from was Tim Kaine, from the senator from Virginia, who was speaking right before New York Senator Chuck Schumer. And actually, as you can see, those shots that we just played for you coming from them are not on the same page, which is leading some Washington insiders to suggest that there's some party infighting going on, again, because 8 Democrats broke rank to support the Republican measure to reopen the government. Now, this is all coming amidst breaking news this morning that the Trump administration has actually reappealed, if you will, to the Supreme Court to keep the funding for SNAP benefits frozen as all of this plays out. So that means that even if a deal is reached right now, that the Trump administration, again, is trying to keep the funds frozen throughout all of this, which some are saying is distressing news, because it appears that a bipartisan agreement had been reached to some degree within the Senate. So that's what's going on there. And again, all of this is developing right now. We also want to talk about the impact the shutdown is having on airports across the country, because there's still developing news to let you know about that. In particular, airports in our region, and again, Newark International is appearing to have the brunt of the worst of that's going on. And even though the shutdown may be coming to an end, it appears that air travel is still going to be heavily impacted. At least 200 flights were canceled at Newark on Sunday, and the cancellations are expected to increase by this Friday at airports across the country. And now this is partially due, it's a combination of things actually. There's an air traffic controller shortage that we've already been telling you about. Then you've got on top of that the shutdown playing a role in that as well. So that's what's happening with that right there. We actually have heard some reaction to the very latest on this. We're going to play for you that right now. Take a listen to this.
It was kind of rough because we got onto the what is it, the on the tarmac? Yeah, on the tarmac. And they told us it's going to be a 3-hour delay.
3 o'clock flight, it too late my flight. I waiting my marriage yesterday, waiting my friend house. 18 hours wait.
You have no idea. I'm just over it all. Obviously, I understand why people aren't here to work, and, you know, I don't blame them per se. I just really hope this quickly subsides, because I need to be in LA at the beginning of next month for work. I'm trying to get home to Atlanta, and I've been here since yesterday early morning.
All right, so again, travelers are weighing in, a lot of frustrated travelers given the fact of what's going on, and also the reason why this is a big deal and why we keep talking about it. We are literally starting into that season where everyone is making plans for their holiday travel. So whether you're talking about flying relatives here, like my mom and I, she's in Virginia Beach, we're talking about what usually is our plan for Thanksgiving. You know, other families are also having discussions right now, also watching as this plays out, because again, you're still trying to come up with plan Bs, which was the case in my family. We're talking about, well, maybe a train to DC, you know, and then I drive down, but we're still working it all out. But again, not that just those persons, everyone who has a interest in flying is certainly impacted by that. To that end, we also want to pass along this, a public service announcement coming to you right now ahead of Veterans Day tomorrow, but it's something that we mentioned to you last week and we'll be sticking with for quite a while. Fox 5 proudly saluting our nation's veterans and the organizations that serve them every day. We believe that our veterans deserve to live with dignity and independence, not on the streets. That is why we are making Camo our cause in support of the Honor U.S. Vets campaign. Now, you can join us by buying limited edition Fox U.S. Vet swag, making a donation, and wearing camo this Veterans Day tomorrow. If you take pictures of yourself, scan that QR code, because we want to see your social posts with that up there using the hashtag Honor U.S. Vets. Now, we were just talking about the very latest that the shutdown is having on air travel and possibly a deal being reached, but we also mentioned that the Trump administration is trying to continue to have frozen funds that would feed 42 million Americans that's still caught up in the middle of all of this. Anyway, when we come back from break, Stephanie Bertini will be here to talk about SNAP benefits and where things stand with the 42 million Americans on the verge of food insecurity. It is now 1:20 on Newsroom Live. I'm Antoine Lewis from the newsroom of Fox 5 on the Upper East Side. We'll be right back. $122 on Monday, November 10th. We've been talking about the impact the shutdown is having on making sure Americans actually get food. Stephanie Bertini, you've been covering this for a while now. Just bring us up to speed with where things stand with SNAP benefits.
So a lot of back and forth on the federal level, and the states really just standing in confusion, Antoine. So here's the gist of it. Because of the government shutdown, as you know, SNAP was completely frozen. Yeah, that was the beginning of November. And then two judges said, look, you can't do that to the feds. So basically, what they said was you have to put these payments through. So states start moving to put the payments through. Then the Trump administration appeals it, a bit of a standstill over the weekend. Now, some states, like for example, Governor Hochul said, yes, late, but as of this month, New Yorkers should expect to get full SNAP payments. She said that on Friday, and those payments would start coming through on Sunday, she had said. Now, we're waiting for an update from Governor Hochul. I reported a package, we're playing it here yesterday, and we said, so does this change? And the reason we're asking if it changes, Antoine, is because then the feds basically came back and said, look, to all the states that have issued full SNAP payments, you can't do that. That was not authorized. So there's a lot happening this morning. The Trump administration back in court essentially to freeze it. Now, they're saying that they need to freeze it because the government is shut down and it's a payment issue. But as you know, a lot of Americans deal with food insecurity. SNAP is essentially a food insecurity safety net for 42 million people. We're talking about a lot of people across the nation, and that's what's on the books, Antoine. With something like this, you know, those numbers are always underreported.
Right. We know, and I think I did a story last week, Stephanie, that said it was somewhere around 1.8 to 1.9 New Yorkers alone, and more than 800,000 in New Jersey, you know, who are impacted by the frozen benefits of the SNAP assistance.
Yeah, so what's happening now? Well, food pantries, like for example, the pantry that I was able to profile yesterday for my piece, this is a kosher pantry. There was a pop-up food prep, and then this food actually will be delivered, would be delivered. This was as of yesterday. This food pantry talking about excessive demand, and over the course of the last week or so, I've talked to other people within the space, the food pantry space, that have said, look, we're dealing with excessive demand when it comes to people coming here. Yesterday I learned here talking to volunteers that there's basically so much demand that A, they're unsure if they can keep up with it, and B, they're starting to see new faces at these pantries. For example, the one I was at yesterday was on the Upper East Side. You're looking at video that was gathered over the weekend. Richard Giacobas also reported on this, and you're seeing those lines around blocks. At places where people can get free meals and get free food. What does SNAP do, Antoine? It subsidizes groceries. So what happens November 1st when you didn't get that money? Maybe you had to charge it if you have a credit card. Maybe you had to dip into your savings. Even
if you have savings.
Right. Now, even if the payments come in, there's already a lag. The problem with something like this is it's already put a lot of people in a bad spot. A lot of families with kids, a lot of elderly people on fixed incomes. This is very serious, and there's a lot of concern.
One of the things that was equally telling was I profiled one just last week, as did you, Richard, and all of us have been covering. This one was specifically for federal workers because remember, they are furloughed right now. They are working without a check, so it's also impacting them, and they are not SNAP recipients, But again, pantries are now starting to see the TSA workers,
Another issue.
Post office workers, because they are in the middle of this as well.
So they're in the middle of it because, as you pointed out, they haven't been paid for more than 40 days now or something like that. And so they're going to work. They're essential workers. They're not being paid. So what happens? They have to go, in some cases, to places that are going to offer. So more pressure on these food pantries. It's interesting. I reported an extensive series on food insecurity during the pandemic. This was when I was working in South Florida. And, something reminded me of that series that I did years ago yesterday when I was reporting on the Upper East Side. And it was one of the volunteers who said, you see people at these places that you'd never even imagine in times like this. And that's what we saw in the pandemic. I know you were reporting here in the tri-state, in Miami, we saw people driving Mercedes, BMW, lining up for food because, it was the whole social distancing. So they were lining up in vehicles and again, driving luxury vehicles, people sometimes making well over 100,000. What do you do with a single mom over 100,000 in New York, right? She's got a couple kids, she's got to feed them. Maybe she qualifies for SNAP because of her dependents. So we're not just talking about really low income, we're talking about the in-between. And in an area demographically... It is based on household income and the earning of that household. And this is like in an area like the tri-state, you have so much variety when it comes to demographics, so many people in different situations. Right.
One of the other things I want to ask you about is because you covered extensively and well our migrant crisis, and the impact of food, trying to make sure that the migrants were eating, but now we're talking about Americans who have been receiving federal assistance. How do you separate those roles? Because you were so invested in the one, now you have to shift gears to tell a similar story, but to a different bunch of people that are now impacted by
Yeah,
that.
when you look at it from the wide view, as you know, Antoine, as a journalist, as a storyteller, there's some universal themes that just kind of unite everyone. When we're talking about food, we're really talking about health and safety, right? So whether you're covering the migrant crisis in depth, whether you're covering what's happening with federal workers that aren't getting paid, or whether you're covering people who have relied on SNAP traditionally for years and years and years because of whatever their situation is, you're talking about fear, uncertainty, health when it comes to nutrition. So there's those universal themes that you really are able to tell that story, and it resonates with so many people.
You're talking about people, I didn't mean to step on you, but also that are trying to decide whether or not they're going to eat tonight, you know, or should I save what's left for my child or children?
Right.
You know,
Right.
I mean,
And
you're a mom.
So you have the schools where, for example, my son, he's in charter. Public schools, as you know, charter schools, different school systems, they give them meals, right? You've heard advocates say again and again when it comes to the topic of food insecurity, you know, sometimes they believe that some kids, that's the only place they're eating at school, right? So imagine that. Imagine a mom and dad, or a single mom, or grandparents taking care of kids, because sometimes that's who the guardians are, saying, okay, well, I know they eat at school, and I make sure monthly that I can provide dinner. Right? That I can provide dinner. I only got to cover lunches on the weekend and breakfast, but I need to provide dinner, right? And now you lose SNAP. So now what are you feeding these kids? Rice without meat? Like, that's the reality of what we're talking about.
Very true.
Meals that are not balanced. And so that's the whole factor when you talk about health and nutrition. But psychologically, this is huge because there's no end in sight.
Hopefully, you know, that the Capitol Hill lawmakers will get things together, and that if this tentative deal that we've been talking about all morning, you know, moves forward, you know, just to let everyone know, the Senate has to take a final vote, and then before it would move on to the House, you know, for consideration. So hopefully that, but then to your other point that you were reporting on earlier, just because the deal is reached doesn't mean that the benefits automatically kick in right then. There's still a process.
There's the factor of people being in the rears already. And Antoine, what's happening, right? We're in inflation.
Yep.
We're going into the holiday season. So now we're going to talk about the same families that couldn't feed their kids at the beginning of November, having to buy Christmas gifts or gifts for the holidays, whatever, you know, it is that they might celebrate. We're talking about issue after issue. We know that there's long been an affordability crisis here in New York City and in the tri-state, but this is about more than that, right? It's one thing if you can't pay the cable bill. If you can't feed your 6-year-old, I have a 6-year-old. It's another level. And that's why you're hearing, I think, so much frustration and outrage from state leaders. Okay, so for example, yesterday the governor of Maryland,
Wes Moore,
he spoke out and he basically said it's chaos and it's been chaos, right? We reached out to Governor Hochul's office. As I mentioned on Friday, they said, okay, we're going to go through with a full SNAP payment for New Yorkers. So we reached out and we said, okay, well, because over the weekend, as detailed in the package, all state leaders were told, no, if you proceeded with full payment, you need to scale that back. That wasn't authorized. So we asked, you know, what is New York going to do now? We're waiting on that answer.
Stephanie Bertini, as always, you're all on top of it, juggling multiple hats today. Thank you so much for being with us for Newsroom
Live.
Live.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, a quick break. More news, more headlines, including SCOTUS making a decision about same-sex marriage. We'll talk about that when we return. All right, everybody, welcome back to Newsroom Live, 1:34 on your Monday. Antoine Lewis, happy to be with you from the newsroom of Fox 5 on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. Developing news right now out of D.C. SCOTUS actually taking up a appeal to try to overturn the decision legalizing same-sex marriage nationwide. Well, the justices rejected a call to do that. They turned away an appeal from Kim Davis, the former Kentucky court clerk who refused to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples after the High Court's 2015 ruling in Obergefell versus Hodges. Now, Davis had been trying to get the court to overturn a lower court order for her to pay some $360,000 in damages and attorney's fees to a couple that were denied a marriage license. So that's what was going on the with the justices this morning in regards to same-sex marriage. Our other breaking news coming into us about an hour or so ago: the Giants looking for a new coach, apparently. So Brian Daboll, the Giants' head coach, from what we are learning, sources telling us that he has been fired. Now, this is happening after a 24-20 loss to the Chicago Bears yesterday. Some, Eric, you're a fan. Can Giants fans say they saw this coming, or
yes, absolutely.
Saw it coming? Should have been. Okay. Eric McFarlane, one of our top editors here, and a diehard Giants fan who's wiping his eyes maybe, but is weighing in. And you said, come here, Eric, you step over here. Well, come closer, we can hear a little bit of it. He's shy, you know, but then project. So how are you feeling right now that this is happening?
About time.
Okay.
About time. Should have been done. A lot of changes should be happening.
All right. Not just him, for what you're saying. Okay. Again, this is one of our Giants fans weighing in. But the team's record right now is 2-8. And again, you're hearing from Giants fans literally live right now who are breathing a sigh of relief. Okay. Okay, Eric McFarlane is joining us right there. All right, the other thing we want to talk about, because next to him, Vinny Mariani, our other top-notch editor, who's just making sure we got the wheels on our car here that's rolling along, wanted to make sure that we were keeping you abreast of what's going on with the weather, because a freeze warning. Thank you, sir. A freeze warning will be taking effect just after midnight, so somewhere around 1 o'clock. It will be extended until about 9 or so. A freeze warning is going to be hitting our area. And if you followed us late last week into the weekend, we told you about that Arctic freeze that was going to be making its way in. So temperatures are going to be dropping. So right now, the average is in the mid-50s. You can expect that to drop, from what we're understanding, about 10 degrees or so. Now, what you're looking at right now is, of course, the Tri-State Satellite Radar. All of that green that you see right there, that's precipitation. That is moisture in the air, and the yellow and the orange are where the thunderstorms are starting to move up. Now, while our team is telling us that we shouldn't have to worry about thunderstorms per se, we do know that it was drizzling when our crews were moving around outside just a little bit there. And then at some point later tonight, again, that temperature is going to drop across the tri-state, again, about 10 degrees or so. So make sure you govern yourselves accordingly, because when you head out the door tomorrow, if you're going to be going out early, you will absolutely need to dress warmly for that, because we will still be in a freeze warning. So we have that for you there. All right, everybody. These are our weak La Nina winters. So right now, apparently, what we're going on and dealing with is a milder than average with below average snowfall in areas that are receiving snow. The last winter, New York City received only 12.9 inches, which I'm actually quite okay with. I imagine everybody else as well. Average New York City snowfall is somewhere between 25 to 30 inches. We are just telling you this right now. We are certainly not saying that this is something that we need you to do. We're just sharing information with you right now. But again, the headline weather-wise is that expect that Arctic freeze to kick in at some point, because the temps are going to be dropping somewhere between 10 to 12 degrees overnight. Around 1 o'clock is when that freeze warning takes effect. If you have plants on the balcony, bring them in. If you have children on the balcony, bring them in too. All right, it is 1:38. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back. Back now at 1:40 on your Monday. And again, Fox 5 proudly saluting our nation's veterans and the organizations that serve them each and every day. We believe that our veterans deserve to live with dignity and independence and not on the streets. That is why we are making Camo our cause in support of the Honor U.S. Vets campaign. Now, you can join us by buying limited edition Fox U.S. Vet swag, making a donation, and wearing camo this Veterans Day, which is tomorrow. Post your camo on your socials with the hashtag Honor U.S. Vets. I'll be reading that again to you because we certainly want to make sure we bring that to your attention. All right, time to talk health news. And if you're dealing with cholesterol issues, some new promising information to pass along to you in that regard. So apparently there is an experimental pill when taken daily that may actually lower cholesterol in patients when taken with their statins. So whether it's pitavastatin or atorvastatin, these will work in conjunction with that. So here's the information. Trial data showing that bad cholesterol was reduced 60% after 24 weeks of daily treatment with, and I'm going to work on the name of this here, enlicitide. That apparently is the name of the pill. Now, there were some side effects like gastrointestinal disorders and certain infections, but this was also found in those who were given a placebo, which you know is normally the case during clinical trials. The results were presented at the American Heart Association's scientific session. So again, that's something. The pill is called enlicitide, and keep that one on your radar if you want to talk to your healthcare professional, your doctor, you know, about that. But certainly promising news there. All right, New York Congressman Mike Lawler making an announcement with Montefiore Nyack about trying to announce legislation to help families afford in vitro fertilization, IVF. So the IVF Access and Affordability Act will provide a federal tax credit to help families afford life-giving fertility treatments like in vitro fertilization. Now, the plan would provide up to $20,000 in tax credits to individuals and $40,000 in credits to couples to offset the cost of IVF, which if you've gone through it or you certainly know anyone else that's gone through it, it is not a inexpensive process. It is very expensive. IVF can actually cost tens of thousands of dollars, and many insurance plans may not cover that. So I believe that we want to make sure we pass that on to you. Congressman Mike Lawler actually speaking about the importance of this from Montefiore Nyack. Let's take a listen.
Fertility care gives families hope, and it helps make the dream of parenthood possible. But for millions of Americans, the dream of becoming a parent is out of reach because of the cost and limited access to fertility care.
So Lawler apparently went on to talk about the personal connection to it. He spoke about fertility issues that he and his wife were actually experiencing when they were trying to build a family of their own. So again, that's information coming from New York Congressman Mike Lawler about trying to introduce measures that will help families afford, or individuals afford, IVF to grow their families. All right, coffee lovers. Now, this is an interesting one for you. You may, if you're worried about drinking caffeinated coffee, well, it actually may protect against irregular heartbeats. So here's the information. A study recruited 200 adults at the average age of about 70 years old in the U.S. and Canada and Australia who were regular coffee drinkers at some point within the last 5 years. Now, the two groups were then split into two subject groups, one of which cut out coffee, the other had at least 1 cup every day. Researchers found that those in the coffee drinking cup were less likely by 17% to have a reoccurrence of AFib, which causes irregular heartbeats. Over 10 million Americans live with this disorder. So again, this news coming out late last week, over the weekend, that it looks like drinking caffeinated coffee may actually protect against irregular heartbeats. You know, there are so many concerns and studies that suggest that otherwise, you know, caffeine speeds things up, that sort of thing. So a lot of discussion on it, but with any information that you hear, you always want to follow up with your personal physician, your healthcare professional, wherever it is that you're going to get trusted response to anything you may see or hear. You follow up with a professional on that end. But yeah, it looks like apparently drinking caffeinated coffee can impact conditions like AFib for people, for Americans, and those abroad who are also suffering from them. 1:45 on your Monday. A quick break, more news, more headlines when we return. Back now at 1:47 on your Monday. Antoine Lewis joining you from the newsroom of WNYW Fox 5. Let's take a quick look outside because you can see rain is starting to come through the area, but what we really want to bring to your attention is the temperature drop that's expected to happen this evening, and we will actually have a freeze warning in effect from just after midnight, so somewhere around 1 o'clock-ish in that area on through the morning commute, ending somewhere around 9. Of course, this is subject to change, but what we want to make sure that you are aware of is that you will need to dress warmly if you're going to be going out tomorrow, and then just be aware that with the freeze warning, any plants, any things you may have on the balcony, you either want to cover them, make sure they're covered, or bring them inside because of that. We want to take a moment now just to remember the FDNY, who is dealing with a loss right now. That's the gentleman right there, and we want to show his picture again. But this was firefighter Patrick Brady, and apparently Patrick lost his life battling a blaze this weekend, dying in the line of duty. Here's what we can tell you. Black and purple bunting hung above the garage doors at the firehouse where Brady has worked since 2022. He's an 11-year veteran of the force. Now, apparently he was on the roof of a large building in Brownsville, Brooklyn, when officials say he suffered a medical emergency and then suddenly went into cardiac arrest. Now, he was treated at the scene and rushed to a hospital where we understand he passed away. And Alex, I'm gonna just ask if you can lose me in the box so we can show him full one more time. He's 42 years old, again, an 11-year veteran of the FDNY, proudly showing off that smile and his certificate right there. So we are thinking of the FDNY as well as Mr. Brady's family. Again, he's an 11-year veteran of the FDNY. He passed away over the weekend battling a blaze in Brownsville, Brooklyn, and Patrick Brady was 42 years old. We'll keep you updated on that. As we told you at the top when we joined you at 1 o'clock, the government shutdown, there may be a tentative deal reached. We also want to let you know that lawmakers have resumed discussions in the Capitol right now, and Alex and I are going to give you a live look at what they're talking about, and we're going to listen in.
Tax credits goes for profit and it goes for administrative overhead. Only 80% goes to pay for the insurance premium to pay for health care costs for the person who's the recipient. Let's speak of what I am describing, the pre-funded flexible savings account. Pre-funded because you take the enhanced premium tax credit, instead of giving it to the insurance company, you give it to the individual and her family through a flexible spending account. A flexible spending account which millions of Americans already have. She can use this money to pay for prescription drugs, for dental work, for medical care, eyeglasses, orthodontia, much more flexibility than through a traditional insurance policy. And the key thing is, whereas if we give the money to the insurance company, 20% goes for profit and overhead. If we give it to the patient, 100% goes to health care that she needs. 100% goes to her family's health care needs. 100%, not 80%. This is better value for the health care dollar. Next, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Do I have another slide or not? I have to stand on this floor. Now, who would get it? Every eligible American citizen on the exchange would receive a pre-funded flexible spending account equal in value to the enhanced premium tax credit they would have received had the money gone to their insurance company. It doesn't pay for insurance premiums, but it pays for the actual health care that they actually need. Now, I'm pleased to say, next slide, President Trump has tweeted in support of the concept. Now, of course, I'm pleased to be aligned with the president on this. He says he recommends that instead of giving hundreds of billions of dollars, and this is President Trump's rhetoric, to money-sucking insurance companies, the money should be sent directly to the people so they can purchase their own much better health care. Notice the caps. That is a President Trump tweet. I'm pleased to be aligned with the president, but for my Democratic colleagues that want to guarantee that whatever we pass will get a vote on the floor of the House of Representatives, this is effectively a guarantee that if we pass a program like this, it can get a vote on the floor of the House of Representatives. If the president asks Speaker Mike Johnson to bring it up for a vote, Speaker Johnson will. So if you're just thinking, just imagine, my Democratic colleagues, how do we get something that 100% of the money goes for real health care. It doesn't go to insurance companies where 20% goes for profit and overhead. It's a system already used by millions of Americans. And may I say, it all but guarantees to get a vote on the floor of the House of Representatives. This tweet gives them that assurance. Now, some immediately begin to criticize the president, assuming that he was going to take all the money going for health insurance premiums and put it in one of these flexible spending accounts. That's not true. Go back to what I said earlier. We only are talking about the enhanced premium tax credits, which would pre-fund this flexible spending account. We are not talking about the baseline premium tax credits that are part of the original Obamacare article. By the way, Republicans want people to have coverage. This doctor who used to take care of the uninsured wants people to have coverage. Now, the more I've discussed this, and this is the fourth or fifth time I've given this talk, I'm pleased to say that some of my Democratic colleagues are saying, hey, we can talk about this. Not quite there yet, but I see the wisdom of it. I'm willing to move forward with it, and I thank them for that. I want everybody in the Senate to put aside their prejudice, which sometimes is that if one side proposes it, it must be wrong. And I'll say to my Democratic colleagues, what I am proposing with the pre-funded flexible spending account is actually more closely aligned with how the original authors of the Affordable Care Act wanted that legislation to be implemented. I find it ironic that some of my Democratic colleagues are rejecting something which is closer to the original bill. But I think they're rejecting it in part because of misunderstanding, lack of knowledge, and maybe for some because the Republican is proposing. Put that trench warfare mentality behind you. Think about it. Could this be better for the American people? Can this accomplish the goal of making the possession of health insurance and paying for my family's health care more affordable? Now, for those who think this is too complicated, let me say that 72% of Americans who get their health insurance through a federal employer, a state employer, a local employer, 72% of us have a flexible spending account. My family and I have a flexible spending account. 47% of Americans who are in private insurance have access to a flexible spending account. Doesn't mean they take it, but it just means they have access. Millions of Americans are already using flexible spending accounts. What I'm proposing, let's just give the same option to people who are on the individual exchanges. Now, and by the way, let me just make the
All right, we've been listening to federal lawmakers discussing health care and the impact that the shutdown is having on it, as well as you can hear the congressman there that was just talking, trying to make the case to Democrats who are still not in full support, of any agreement right now. But as we told you at the top, there's a tentative agreement in place, a vote of 60-40 over the weekend, with 8 Democrats breaking ranks to support a measure that the Republicans have sponsored that would reopen the government. All right, it is 1:55, a quick break. More news, more headlines, more Newsroom Live when we return. All right, everybody, 1:57. Welcome back to Newsroom Live. Fox 5 proudly saluting our nation's veterans and the organizations that serve them every day. We believe that our veterans deserve to live with dignity and independence and not on the streets. That is why we are making Camo our cause in support of the Honor U.S. Vets campaign. Now, you can join us by buying limited edition Fox U.S. Vet swag. And some of it's actually very nice. That mug and a couple of the hats are really cool. But you can buy the swag, make a donation, and wearing camo this Veterans Day. Post your camo on your socials with the hashtag Honor U.S. Vets. And speaking of Veterans Day, tomorrow is Veterans Day, and this year's parade will commemorate the 250 years of military service since the start of the Revolutionary War. So more than 280 marching units and 20,000 marchers, along with 25 floats, are expected to be a part of the parade. Thousands of spectators, and if you've never gone to this or watched it, it is literally lining the streets of both sides of that. Expected to line the route when it steps off at 12:30. The participants will march up Fifth Avenue from 25th to 45th Street. So it's a 20-block walk there. Now, the United War Veterans Council said that the event will feature past and present members of every branch of the military, along with vintage vehicles and marching bands. So, all right, everybody, we're about to bring you up to speed on everything. Stay with this, with the application that you're watching us on, because Newsroom Live will be continuing with more news, more information. We will see you back here again at 4 o'clock for the news block in and of itself. So again, remember that temperatures are going to drop tonight. So as you're leaving out tomorrow early in the morning, that temp freeze will be in effect from 1 to 9 a.m. So govern yourself accordingly there. Antoine Lewis coming to you again from the newsroom of Fox 5. And we want to say that on behalf of my producer, Alex Meyer, editors Vinny Mariani and Eric McFarlane, who's over there dealing with the Giants, having fired their head coach, and he is not unhappy at all. Anyway, make it a good day, New York. Have a good day.
Thanks for watching Fox 5 New York. We're now joining live now from Fox.
Instead, and they'll give you the lower price, not the higher price if there's a lower cash price than there often is. This turns that woman, that family, into an informed consumer, and that begins to drive down